Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands. And extending my trap strip back into the messages in action. The art is feeding, stop, start the disbelieving, cause the garden holds the shards, the medicine is in the seeds. When we hold tight to our right to protect, and we know our might is tenfold in connection. Our elders hold them bright lights, we protect them. The medicine is evident, the wolf, the hawk, the bear clan. We hold tight to our right to protect, and we know our might is tenfold in connection. Our elders hold them bright lights, we protect them. The medicine is evidence, the wolf, the hawk, the medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands. Medicine woman, medicine man. Walking with grace, I know your face and I trust your hands.
It helps if I turn on my microphone, and masks are tricky with earrings. But good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork, from East Hampton to Riverhead and Shelter Island. We worship and reside on the ancestral lands of the Montaukett, the Shinnecock, the Korchog, and the Manhasset. We take this time in our service every week to acknowledge the people who cared for and with this land before European colonization, their stewardship with themselves and each other and all of the beings that share this land. And also to acknowledge our relationship with our Shinnecock neighbors today and their continued struggles for sovereignty and for justice. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you vote, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very, very welcome here. I am the Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson. I am joined this morning by Sara Gordon, who will be leading us in song from Shelter Island. Our tech hosts in the building today are Carl Wittenberg, Kent Martin, and Monica Sasada. If you are joining us online, we want to remind you that you have access to live transcript, sometimes called closed captioning, if that is something that is necessary or even just useful and helpful for you. And if you are joining us online and haven't yet ventured back to the meeting house, we also want to extend a special welcome, invite you to join us. We are, as we gather both online and in person, practicing our community care and consent. What that means for our in-person gathering is that we are wearing masks. I am not right now, but our camera might pan the room. You can see we're all wearing masks and we are social distancing. I know that sometimes when people are in person and haven't been for a long time, there is a tendency and a desire for touching and hugging and singing. Please know that the singing that happens is happening through the mask or with the mask on, and none of the touching or hugging or any of that happens without consent, which means that anybody asks. This is a reminder for folks who are here, and an allowance for folks who are wondering if it's really safe for you to be back. No hugging or touching happens without asking, and please know that your no thank you, your elbow bump in place of a hug is welcome and respected. And with all of that, we are happy to have you, whether you are in person or joining us online from the comfort of wherever you are. I'm also supposed to remind people who are in the building to silence our devices, which is a thing that we forget when we're doing this from our living rooms or our bedrooms. I have a couple of announcements for this week. Our new to UU information session is happening today, directly after this service, in a breakout room or somewhere in this building in person. So if you are new or new-ish or have been here for such a long time that you want a reminder, that new to UU session just helps you get a little bit oriented with this congregation and with how we fit into the world of Unitarian Universalism. On Tuesday, this is a rain reschedule. The county will be hosting a community meeting here at the Meeting House to talk about some work that they are planning on the Turnpike. So you should have seen that announcement and hopefully registered. If you are interested and you show up not having registered, they probably won't turn you away. But if you know that you're interested and haven't registered, then let me know, and I'll try to make sure that you get there. And then finally, on Thursday at 6 p.m., our board will be meeting online. You can find information on how to connect to any of these events, either in our weekly bulletin or on our online calendar. And if you have events that you want to share with the congregation, please get them to the office by Tuesday of the week that you want them shared. If you're visiting, we invite you to sign our virtual guest book by using the link in your chat or our in-person guest book at our welcome table when you first enter the room or before you exit the building. And someone from our Care and Connection team will be in touch with you to, again, get you a little oriented to the congregation and also to help figure out how you can be more involved in what happens here. You should also have a link to our online order of service, which will not be easy for our tech hosts to put in the chat because I didn't put it in our notes, but if you got your Sunday morning email reminding you of the link for here, then you can find a link for our online order of service. It's a lot of announcements. I'm going to take a deep breath and settle a little more deeply into our worship together as we light our chalice, which begins to hallow this space. Tuna is going to help us light our chalice with these words from Gretchen Haley. Surrender to this life. Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now. Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other ages, other countries, other stakes, purge the past, forgive the future, for each come too soon. Surrender only to this life, this day, this hour, not because it does not constantly break your heart, but also because it beckons with beauty, startles with delight. If only we keep waking up. This is the gift we have been given. These body clothes, this heartbreak, this pulse, this breath, this light, these friends, their hope. Here, wherever you are joining us from, we remember ourselves, all a part of us, giving thanks together. Settle and let us worship together. This first song for us to sing, Sara will lead us in. We celebrate the web of life.
We celebrate the web of life, its magnitude we sing, for we can see divinity in every living thing. Respect the water, land, and air, which all gave all creatures birth. Protect the lives of all that share the glory of the earth.
Thank you, Sara. It is November already. Our theme for November, reflected in our banner, thanks to the worship team and especially to Tuna, is nonviolence. What does that mean for us as Unitarian Universalists? What does that mean for us as members of this community and this world? And what does that mean for each of us as individuals who, if you are even a little bit like me, can be pretty hard on the people around you and even harder on yourself. So this month we dig into nonviolence as our theme for exploration. And our first message this morning is a story from the Reverend Christopher Booth, or Buse, if he ever sees this. I hope I'm not butchering your name. The story is called Enemies. So there once was a little girl, or, a grown and slightly middle-aged woman who was queen of an island. Queen of an island where she led and ruled and tried to do so with care and attention, but also recognizing the deep responsibility of keeping herself and most especially her people safe. And so deep into this work, One day, one of her advisors says to her, because a story always starts with one day something happened. One day, one of her advisors said to her, "Your Majesty, the people on this island are great. We are good. But we have to be aware of the people on the next island because they are our enemies." "Our enemies," said the queen. "That's terrible." Yes, it is very terrible," said the advisor. "For our little island will never be safe while we have those enemies. So we need to find a way to get rid of our enemies." "Well, that makes sense," said the queen. "You're right. We have to get rid of our enemies. Do you have any idea how we can get rid of our enemies?" "Well," said the advisor, "we have been, myself and the other advisors, we have been thinking about this, and we believe that if we take our army, put it on a ship, sail it to the other island, and then our army, because we're good people, our army will march across that land and we can destroy that enemy." Well, they did have an army, but the queen was not sure that this was the right course of action. "Thank you," she said to the advisor. "Thank you for sharing the concern, and thank you definitely for sharing this idea, but let me think about it. And you can come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it some more." "Yes, Your Majesty, but don't think too long," the advisor warned, and bowed out of the room. So the next day, the advisor, urgent and fervent in his advice, returned to talk to the queen, but was shocked to find the queen sitting in her parlor having tea with the queen from the other island. "What are you doing?" he yelled in anger. Shock. He turned red. How can you sit here and drink tea with this person? She is our enemy. She leads our enemies. And I thought we agreed yesterday, we must get rid of our enemies." The queen looked the advisor in the eye, and she was calm and steady. "You have been a good advisor," she said. "And you were right. We do need to get rid of our enemies. But you, friend, would have us destroy our enemies by conquering with force." "I think," she said, "the best way to get rid of our enemies is to make them our friends. May your roots grow deep. May your branches spread far. May you find this world to be a wonderful place with friends and enemies who are transformed, and leave it better for those who follow." This next song comes to us by the grace and gift of our friends at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton in Massachusetts. "Winds Be Still." This is a time in our community of shared faith when we share the deep joy, sorrow, and concerns of our hearts. If you have a joy or concern to share, you can, if you're joining us online, unmute yourself. If you're joining us online and on the phone, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6. If you're joining us in person, please join us at the microphone. You may need to turn it on. You can also share your joy or concern in the chat. And if you'd like to share beyond the folks who are gathered here on Sunday morning, please do use the link in your chat to share your joy and concern with the minister. That's me. And I can make sure that it gets to the rest of the congregation so that we can include you in our joy and comfort you in your concerns. And so let me light that candle. Tom's candle of greeting. And I also would like to light a candle here. This is a candle of world concern. We have a lot happening here locally and in our lives, and sometimes, though it is on our hearts, we forget to say out loud that we are caring for people outside of our smaller community. That is a community candle, especially a world candle for the people of Ethiopia in the face of the escalating conflict there. For all of us, for the ways that we are able to gather, for the ways that we are able to care for the people and the animals in our community. And our prayers of concern for the world, may we be warmed by these candles as we hold this love in our hearts for the week to come of meditation. As we think about nonviolence, I have alluded to peace and nonviolence toward ourselves and others. And so we'll do this morning a loving kindness meditation practice. This practice builds capacity for compassion to ourselves and others. There are lots of ways that you can lead this, lots of words and lots of intentions that you can use for this. We are going to use 4. I don't advise that you do more than 4 at a time. It helps to focus. And we'll direct that loving kindness toward ourselves and then outward and then further outward into the world. And then Sara will lead us in a version of this meditation that appears in our hymnal. So for now, I invite you to relax. I'm noticing from the bodies in front of me that some of you have already started to do this. To find a centering, if you can, in your body and your breath. I'm going to do that for myself. If, as you breathe and you center, you notice that there is tension somewhere in your body, it helps to touch it, maybe in your heart, or on your knees, or in your gut. And we'll do each round of these 3 times. You can repeat out loud or to yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness.
I am already.
May I be well. May I be at peace and at ease. May I be whole. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be at peace and at ease. May I be whole. Now call to mind someone who inspires you. Just whoever first comes to mind. And for this person, may they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be at peace and at ease. May they be whole. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be at peace and at ease. May they be whole. And then the third time on your own. And now call to mind someone who is having a difficult time. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be at peace and at ease. May they be whole. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be at peace and at ease. May they be whole. And then once more. And now call to mind someone with whom you are having a challenging relationship right now. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be at peace and at ease. May they be whole. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be at peace and at ease. May they be whole. And now, finally, Stretch your imagination to include all beings. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be at peace and at ease. May we be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be at peace and at ease. May we be whole. And now on your own.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be well with loving kindness. May I be well, may I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole.
So when I first started to think about this topic, and especially this topic in this month, I imagined that I would want us to think about political divisions. Political divisions are not new, and though they are often more intense in November around election time, it feels to me and it felt to me when I thought about this topic at this time of year that we have actually been in a fairly intense time era of division for a while. And so thinking about nonviolence comes to me, at least, in the context of what it means to be a person and an active and engaged, a politically active and engaged, and a community active and engaged person in the midst of this division. And on top of that, what it means, especially to be a religious person in the midst of this division. We sometimes joke or sometimes laugh or sometimes roll our eyes at the part of our welcome that says, however you vote, you are welcome here. And that happens for lots of reasons. It happens because we don't believe it's actually true. It happens because maybe we don't want it to be true. And it stays in our welcome because I remain convinced and am even more convinced that if we are to really be religious people and whole people in this world and in this community, then we need to figure out a way to make it true and figure out a way for us to want it to be true for ourselves and for other people. So what does nonviolence mean for us and for others as a community of religious people? It is not interchangeable with peace, though they are related. The best distinction that I've heard for those two is that nonviolence is a means, and its most common end is peace. Peace being a state of being. It is an impermanent state of being. However much we might imagine that we want to be at peace all of the time, it is a state of being that we are seeking, hopefully as individuals and as communities. But nonviolence is a tool and a strategy for how we can get to peace. And so there are inner dimensions to that. And there are interpersonal dimensions to that. When we think about nonviolence, we are probably most familiar with Gandhi. Gandhi's philosophy and practices of nonviolence in his resistance to British colonial rule in both South Africa and in India. We might recognize the vestiges, the strong link actually, between Gandhi's work and our own Unitarian Universalism, the ways that some of us, many of us, practice a Unitarian Universalism that is geared towards, tending towards peace. For Gandhi, it comes out of an ancient principle common to Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism, of do no harm to any living being. So Ahimsa, that's the image on your bulletin and on your order of service that we picked for this week's service, is about doing no harm to any living being. And that comes out of this belief that we do no harm to any living being because every living being contains a spark of the divine. The same spark of the divine that we contain. That the fly that swats at my nose, the spiders, which are a pain in my apartment, the enemy who votes in a way that I don't like, the person who uses the very loud leaf blower when I am actually trying to meditate. All of us contain a spark of the divine. And so we do no harm because we recognize the ways that we are connected to each other. But this isn't it by itself. Gandhi, building from this philosophy of ahimsa, of do no harm, developed this other philosophy and practice of satyagraha, which is nonviolent resistance. Different than ahimsa because it is not only about how we do no harm, it is a bit of a roadmap to how we do no harm and actually how we go further and spread something more positive. Gandhi called this concept satyagraha, the force which is born of truth and love. Lots of times people talk about this idea of nonviolence or nonviolence resistance as pacifism. That is not actually what he meant and not actually what he practiced or intended for us to practice. He talked about passive resistance as a kind of cowardice. He also talked about aggression as a kind of cowardice. What Gandhi philosophized about, is that a word? And what he practiced is this passive resistance, this active resistance, this idea that through the practice and the cultivation of nonviolence in ourselves, we could do what that queen from our story attempts to do. We could turn our enemies into friends. We can transform the world. It sounds so corny, even as I start to say it out loud. We can change the world with our love. I think there was probably a time in my life when I would have shied away from that idea because it sounded so corny and so naive. But it is what Gandhi called the most powerful force in the world, this force of love and truth, the goal of which is to change the world with our love by turning our enemies into friends, not by fighting, but by learning the common truth of love in the world. I think I might say more about that later. But it's this part that's important because I think when we think about nonviolent action, when we think about political activism in the world, it's this inner dimension of nonviolence that sometimes gets lost. And so he talked about 3 principles of this inner dimension of nonviolence, this power of learning ourselves so that we can turn our enemies into friends. He talked about observing nonviolence of the mind, which is more than think good thoughts. It is about a meditation on nonviolence in the world. It is the loving kindness meditation that we did earlier. That second principle is seeking truth in a spirit of peace and love. Does not mean that we go into our loving kindness meditation convinced that we know what is true and what is right. It means that we are always open and seeking what is more true. It is a recognition that our understanding of what is true can and probably ought to change over time. Seeking truth in a spirit of peace and love. And then thirdly, undergoing a rigorous process of self-scrutiny, self-reflection, self-interrogation and investigation. It is one of the things that I hope we do when we say each week that however you vote, that whomever you love, that whatever your name for the sacred, you are welcome here. It is, I hope, a thing that we are doing when we do that land acknowledgement. When we talk about not just the people who stewarded this land generations ago, but the people who are today in a continued struggle for sovereignty and justice. What role do we have in that continued struggle for sovereignty and justice? This third part of Gandhi's concept of satyagraha is undergoing this rigorous process of self-scrutiny. So this concept has an inner dimension and an interpersonal dimension. And while we often focus on the interpersonal dimension in our desire to change the world, probably more than other faiths, we believe and act in a way that says we must change the world. We are the hands that bend the arc of the universe towards justice. I want to spend so much more time this morning talking about that inner dimension of nonviolence, the part that begins with ourselves, because it means that we are operating from the truth that is love. This not very easily or not very completely translated concept. Gandhi called it the truth force. I wrote this down because the force which is born of truth and love. The force, the energy, the action in the world, which is born of truth and love. But this truth and love can also be understood slightly differently. And the idea that love is truth. I have a sticker on my car that says love is the answer. It's been there for such a long time. I got it, so it's almost 20 years old, and I put it on my car at a time when I was not a practicing Unitarian Universalist. I had been one, and I had moved away. But this sticker spoke to me then, because it belies this idea that the truth is love. So sometimes people will notice it and they'll say, love is the answer. What's the question? And my response is everything. Everything. That love is the answer to everything. I put this on my car and I look at it every time I drive out to face the world. And it sits in a little place in my heart that I don't even always think about. but is always there. Because I want to be operating in the world fundamentally from this belief that there is something that is the truth of the world. The truth of the world is that we are called to love and to be in loving relationship with each other. This, I think, is what Gandhi meant when he talked about love force and truth force. Some people call that God, this idea that the truth of the world is that we are to be in loving relationship with each other. You don't need to call it God. You can call it Satyagraha. You can call it something else. It is the animating force of my life, and it is what I bring here. But there's also practice and discipline. It doesn't stay an animating force of our lives without practice and discipline, because you have also heard me say that people are mostly terrible. I do terrible things. People in the world do terrible things. People do terrible things to me. And so in order to keep this love force, truth force active in our hearts requires practice and discipline. Maybe it's the loving kindness meditation. Maybe it is something else. But we must have a way that we practice it. And these two, so far, are about how we are preparing ourselves to love in the world. I don't want to overlook here that part of the inner dimension of nonviolence is how we love ourselves. I joked about it earlier, but it is serious. That we have to be able to love ourselves. And what that means, what it might mean, is not going to every meeting because you need to sleep, or you need to take a walk, or you need to drink water, or stare in space, or meditate, or pray. Sometimes what it means is saying no to things that are really important. Sometimes what it means is saying no to things that harm us, even as they help other people. Imagine it as the line when you're on a plane, when they tell you to, before you put the mask on the other person, even your precious baby, that you need to put the mask on yourself. And so part of this inner dimension of nonviolence is our ability to be nonviolent toward ourselves. All of these prepare us for the interpersonal dimension of nonviolence. This idea that we are turning our enemies into friends, that we are using force, not passivity, in order to do that. And here I want to talk about the nonviolent practitioner that we are probably most familiar with in our own practices. That's the Reverend Martin Luther King, mostly because the way that he talks about love and power has been so useful and sometimes overlooked. King worked at a time when most people had no problem, at least in his circles, talking about love. He was a Christian and an activist working with people for whom that was a regular part of life. And so love, people got. But power, force, this love, truth, force was harder. He told them that power, properly understood, is not the ability to achieve purpose. It is the strength required to bring about social, political, and economic change. Addressing a group of preachers, he says, now, this is me quoting King, a lot of us are preachers and all of us have our moral convictions and concerns. And so often we have problems with power. But there's nothing wrong with power if power is used correctly. One of the great problems of history is that the concepts of love and power have usually been contrasted as opposites, polar opposites, so that love is identified with resignation of power and power with a denial of love. But we have to get this right. What is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. And this is what we must see as we move on. This is what we must see as we move on. Power and love, love, truth, force that Gandhi and that King talk about. We can, however corny and naive it sounds, we can change the world with our love. And how, I think, we in this room begin to do that is by loving ourselves enough to love each other. And so may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. That went on way longer than I thought. Sara is going to lead us in song.
Love before us, love behind us, love at our left, love at our right, love above us, love below us, love unto us, love in our surroundings, love to all, love to the universe. Peace before us, peace behind us, peace at our left, peace at our right, peace above us, peace below us, peace unto us. Peace in our surroundings, peace to all, peace to the universe. Light before us, light behind us, light at our left, light at our right, light above us, light below us, light unto us. Light in our surroundings, light to all, light to the universe, love to all. Peace to all, light to all.
Thank you, Sara. So we support the work of this congregation in many ways. And now that we are meeting both in person and online, you can continue to share your financial contribution through using the baskets in the room for our collection and our Helping Hand Fund, or the link in your chat or on your screen to donate through PayPal. Your contributions help us continue the work of this congregation and helps us to show up for our neighbors with care and love for justice in the world. If you are visiting, we invite you to remain in this room or our online room to greet and be greeted, and also to sign our virtual guest book using the link in your chat, and someone from our care and connection team will be in touch. We are figuring out the logistics of how to do that welcoming virtual coffee hour. So stay with us, help us experiment and find a way to make that work. If you're visiting for the first time or the 50th time or the 500th time, if you find yourself in agreement with our values, our mission, our Unitarian Universalist principles, we hope that you will find a home here with us. Our words to close are from Mark Mosher DeWolf. With what benediction shall I leave you? With this. In your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into every moment. May you live at peace in your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth and the truth of love guide you in every day. Amen. We extinguish our chalice with the unison words, familiar, but also perhaps on your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. This last song from Sara.